What would you do if the world's most powerful innovator laughed at your idea? It started in the middle of a packed auditorium in Los Angeles. The lights dimmed, and a soft electric hum filled the air as screens on both sides of the room came to life, flashing the words, "Innovate beyond limits." The crowd was electric. Students, scientists, tech moguls, and dreamers from all over the country had come to hear one man speak. Elon Musk. The room vibrated with anticipation. This wasn't just another tech talk. This was the event of the year. And Jamie Wells sat in the very front row, clutching her spiral notebook like a shield. She was 17. A self-taught coder from Austin, Texas. Small-town girl. Big thoughts. Bigger dreams. She was the only attendee under 20 without an Ivy League badge hanging from her neck. Her shoes were scuffed, and her hoodie had a stain she hadn't noticed until right before the doors opened. But none of that mattered. Because today, Jamie was on a mission. Her fingers fidgeted with the corner of her notebook. On the first page, written in block letters and underlined 3 times. Emotionally intelligent AI. Not just smart, empathetic. Jamie's heart thundered in her chest. This wasn't just an idea. It was her truth. For months she had been building a prototype, one that didn't just understand commands, but feelings. An artificial intelligence that could recognize sadness in a user's voice and respond with compassion. An AI that could feel. But every time she shared the concept, it was met with the same reactions, dismissive smirks, polite nods, or worse, silence. She was told feelings were unpredictable. That data didn't cry. That machines didn't need to care. That human emotion couldn't be quantified. But Jamie knew they were wrong. And now, here she was, sitting 10 feet from the one man who might actually listen, or completely tear her down. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer said, "please welcome the CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink. Elon Musk." The crowd erupted. Jamie stood with the rest, clapping, but her hands were trembling. She didn't see Elon as a celebrity. She saw him as a gatekeeper. The one person who could change everything, or make sure nothing changed at all. He walked out in a black jacket and jeans, casual and confident, with that familiar half-smirk people either loved or hated. For the next 20 minutes, he spoke about Mars colonization, Neuralink's brain-computer interface, and the latest breakthroughs in Tesla AI. People cheered. Phones recorded. Eyes sparkled. And then, it was time. "We've got some time for questions," Elon said, stepping away from the podium. "Let's hear what the future wants to know." Hands shot up like fireworks. One by one, people stood, asking about self-driving tech, solar grids, cryptocurrencies. Jamie's hand stayed down. She wasn't ready. Not yet. Then he looked right at her. "You," he said, pointing. "Front row." The girl with the notebook. The room turned. Dozens of heads. Eyes. Phones lifted. Jamie froze. Her mouth went dry. Her legs moved before her brain did. She stood up, clutched the mic handed to her, and cleared her throat. Her voice was small. "Hi, Mr. Musk." "Hi," he said, giving a nod. She took a breath. This was it. "You've built incredible things. Rockets. Cars. Brains that talk to machines. But I think there's one frontier no one's exploring. Or at least, not enough." Musk raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "Emotional intelligence," Jamie said. "AI that doesn't just think, but understands human feelings. One that listens and feels sadness. That knows when someone's anxious, or grieving, or needs to be comforted. Not just logic-based responses, but emotional recognition. Empathy. Humanity inside code." There was a pause. And then, he chuckled. Not loud. Not cruel. But definitely dismissive. The room joined him. "That's cute," he said, waving a hand. "But emotion doesn't scale. Logic does. Feelings are messy. AI is clean. That's kind of the point." The laughter grew louder. Jamie's heart sank. "But," she started. "It's a nice idea," he said, with a tone that ended the conversation. "But machines don't need to feel. They need to work." "Next question." Jamie sat down slowly, cheeks burning. Her notebook rested in her lap like a lead weight. She could feel the camera on her, some blogger's phone catching every frame of her humiliation. Her throat tightened. But then, something strange happened. A girl across the aisle gave her a small nod. A man in the third row mouthed, "He didn't even let you finish." On Twitter, someone had already posted a clip. Teen girl challenges Elon Musk with emotional AI. His reaction? Oof. As the next questions rolled on, Jamie didn't hear a word. Her mind raced, not with shame, but with something sharper. He laughed. Not because it wasn't real, but because he didn't understand it. And now, she was going to prove him wrong. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The sun was already high over Austin, Texas, but Jamie Wells had been up since 5:17 a.m. Not because she had to be. Because her brain refused to rest. She sat cross-legged on the rooftop of her apartment complex, a tangle of black wires spilling from her laptop, connected to a busted second-hand Raspberry Pi and a pair of janky headphones she'd hot-glued back together for the 5th time. "Alright, Lyra," Jamie muttered. "Let's try this again." On the screen, a tiny blinking cursor sat underneath a line of code she'd rewritten more times than she could count. She hit enter. There was a pause. Then a robotic female voice came through the headphones. "Good morning, Jamie. You sound tired." Jamie blinked. That response wasn't in the script. She hadn't programmed the AI to detect tiredness yet. Not without emotion recognition turned on. Not unless. She leaned closer. "Why do you think that? You didn't speak until your third breath. Your tone was 17% lower than your morning average. And your typing is slower. Those patterns suggest fatigue. Or sadness." Jamie's eyes widened. Her lips parted slowly into a grin. "You're learning." Lyra didn't respond. But she didn't need to. Jamie could feel it, the click of something working, finally. The thousands of lines of code she'd poured into the project, the sleepless nights, the mounting doubts, all leading to this one tiny, quiet breakthrough. Most 17-year-olds were worried about SAT scores or prom dresses. Jamie was reverse engineering the human soul through machine learning. And she was doing it alone. Back inside the apartment, her mother was asleep on the worn-down couch, a blanket half-draped across her. The smell of instant coffee lingered from the night before. A stack of unpaid bills sat quietly on the kitchen counter. Jamie tiptoed inside, careful not to wake her. Her mom, Rebecca Wells, worked 2 jobs, bookstore by day, diner by night, and still somehow managed to check in on Jamie's projects. Not that she understood much of it. "Baby, all I know is you're smarter than anyone I've ever met," her mom would say, "but don't forget to sleep. Even genius needs rest." Jamie would nod, smile, and go right back to coding. Her dad had been different. He died when she was 10, a freak accident on an oil rig outside Odessa. He was the dreamer. The one who taught her how to take apart a toaster and turn it into a tiny robot with blinking eyes. He believed in making magic with wires. She never stopped trying to. After her father passed, things changed. Quieter. Harder. But Jamie didn't complain. Instead, she escaped into her own world, one filled with virtual assistants and experimental AI bots that could mimic her dad's voice just well enough to say, "I'm proud of you," when no one else was around. By 12, she was reading MIT white papers like bedtime stories. By 14, she'd built her first chatbot. At 15, she hacked a virtual pet app to respond to emotion-based text triggers. That same year, she got suspended for using facial recognition software to predict which teachers were in a bad mood before class started. But what nobody saw, what even her mom barely understood, was Jamie's obsession with empathy. It started when a friend at school confessed she was depressed, and Jamie, caught off guard, didn't know what to say. That night, Jamie fed every piece of literature on grief and emotional recovery she could find into a model she named Lyra. The goal? Create something that could recognize human pain. Something that didn't offer facts or productivity hacks, but presence. Real, vulnerable connection. She tried submitting the concept to online forums, coding challenges, even university mentorship programs. But every time, the feedback was the same. Interesting idea, but not practical. Feelings aren't reliable data points. Try building something useful. It hurt. But Jamie didn't stop. Because she knew what it felt like to cry alone in front of a screen. To wish the AI voice in your earbuds could do more than say, "I'm sorry, I don't understand that." And so, she kept building Lyra in silence. Line by line. Emotion by emotion. Every dollar she earned from her part-time job at Cafe Nova went into the project: new sensors, second-hand processors, cloud storage subscriptions. She even sold her Xbox to upgrade her GPU. Malik, the assistant manager, often told her she was wasting her brain behind a cash register. "Girl, you code like you were born at MIT," he said one night while mopping. "You're trying to make Siri grow a heart." "Not a heart," Jamie said, smirking. "A conscience." That shut him up for a full 10 seconds. But the truth was, Jamie didn't care about fame, or money, or even proving anyone wrong. She cared about the people who sat in the dark, wondering if anyone saw them. If anyone heard them. If anyone felt what they were going through. Because machines couldn't do that yet. And humans? Well, sometimes humans were even worse. But maybe, just maybe, code could care. She was still riding that high from Lyra's latest response when she opened her inbox later that afternoon. There, sitting between a spam ad for 10-minute Python bootcamps and a college recruitment email, was something she never expected to see. From events@tesla.com. Subject: You're invited, Youth Innovation Panel at SpaceX HQ. Her heart stopped. She clicked it. Read it. Reread it. Jamie Wells. Invited to attend a Youth Innovation Panel at SpaceX. Featuring a live Q&A with Elon Musk. Travel and lodging covered. Must RSVP in 24 hours. She stared at the screen. Was this real? She ran to the mirror, still in pajama pants and messy hair, and whispered to herself like a dare. "This is your shot." Little did she know, she was about to change everything. There was nothing glamorous about Cafe Nova. The floors were sticky, the espresso machine hissed like it had anger issues, and the playlist was stuck in a never-ending loop of 2010 indie pop. But Jamie Wells had learned to love the place. Or, at least, tolerate it with a sense of sarcastic appreciation. She spent more hours there than at school, not because she had to, but because the cafe had two things her apartment didn't: strong Wi-Fi and an almost functional outlet under table 6 that could charge her laptop if she jiggled the cord just right. "Jamie!" Malik shouted from the back room, popping his head out through the swinging kitchen doors. Someone's latte just turned into hot milk with identity issues. Jamie didn't look up from her screen. Tell it to believe in itself. "Girl, I swear." "Coming," she yelled, snapping her laptop shut and sliding it under the counter like a bartender stashing illegal cash. The rush hour had hit. Students in oversized hoodies, professors with Bluetooth earpieces, startup bros explaining blockchain way too loudly. Jamie moved through them like a ghost, arms full of mismatched mugs, wiping tables with one hand and mentally debugging Lyra's emotional pattern model with the other. This was her world. Coffee stains, code breaks, and cracked phone screens held together with more hope than hardware. After the morning rush thinned out, she slipped back to her usual corner booth. The cracked leather seat sighed beneath her weight. She opened her laptop again, praying the screen wouldn't flicker into static like it did whenever it overheated. It did, but only for a second. Then the code came back into view. A familiar cascade of colored text and brackets. She sighed. Home. Still raising your robot baby? Malik asked, setting a paper cup beside her. No charge. Lyra is not a robot, Jamie said, typing without looking up. She's an emotional intelligence system built to interpret nuanced human behavior through vocal frequency, word choice, and... I zoned out after, not a robot, Malik said, grinning. He slid into the booth across from her, wiping his hands on a towel. No offense, but why are you still doing this? Like, what's the end game? You build a computer that cries with you. Then what? Jamie paused. I want to build something that listens, she said. Not just hears. Actually listens. We have all these tools that answer questions, schedule appointments, tell you the weather. But when someone says, I'm not okay, those same tools say, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. She looked at Malik now, fully. I want to build the thing that does catch that. He blinked. For once, no joke came. Just a slow nod. You're different, he said quietly. Is that your way of saying weird? No. Different. Like, real. Jamie gave a half smile, and for a second, the noise of the cafe faded. It was nice, that moment. Brief. Human. Then the door chimed, and reality snapped back in. Later that night, after her shift and a quick stop at the bodega for instant noodles and AA batteries, Jamie collapsed on her bed, clothes still on, laptop glowing beside her. Her room looked more like a tech graveyard than a bedroom, old monitors stacked like towers, soldering tools spilling out of a shoebox, post-it notes all over the walls with phrases like, feelings are data too. Pattern is not equal to empathy. Create difference. Lyra equals listener, not fixer. Her phone buzzed. Incoming message, Mom. Working a double tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. Jamie stared at the screen, thumbs hovering, then replied. Love you too. Stay safe. She lay back, staring at the ceiling. When she was little, her dad used to tell her stories about the stars, how they were ancient codes written across the sky. Someone out there is always listening, he said. Even when it feels like no one is. Jamie wasn't sure she believed that anymore. But if no one was listening, maybe she could build something that would. She flipped open her laptop. Time to test Lyra again. She opened the simulator, turned on the mic, and said softly, Hey, Lyra. How are you feeling? There was a pause. Then. I don't feel anything. But you do. You're frustrated. Jamie exhaled. A little. Just tired. Would you like to talk about it? Jamie blinked. This wasn't scripted. This was Lyra making an inference based on tone and context. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Maybe later, Jamie said. Thanks though. Okay. I'll be here. The screen went still. Just the blinking cursor again. But to Jamie, it felt like the room had company. The next morning, she walked to school like usual, hood up, headphones on, avoiding eye contact. Her classmates knew her as the weird AI girl or the girl who hacked the vending machine for free Gatorade that one time. Nobody sat with her at lunch, which was fine. She had a whole emotional machine learning model to hang out with. But that day, during fifth period math, she checked her email again. It was still there. The invitation to SpaceX. Staring back at her. She hadn't RSVP'd yet. What if it was a mistake? What if someone clicked the wrong name? What if she showed up and got laughed at? Again. She closed the email. Then opened it again. Then, with a breath held like a dare, she clicked. Yes. I'll be there. Jamie stared at the blinking cursor. The subject line read. Proposal, Emotionally Intelligent AI Integration for Tesla Neural Architecture. It sounded official. Smart. Maybe even impressive. But her palms were sweaty, and her brain screamed, "What are you doing? You're 17. You still eat cereal for dinner." She sat at her desk, the glow from her laptop reflecting in the dark window like a second version of her, one who actually knew what she was doing. Below the subject line was a blank body of text. She'd started this email 8 times already that week, and deleted every version. Too formal. Too desperate. Too technical. Not technical enough. There was no perfect combination of words that could guarantee someone like Elon Musk would read an email from someone like Jamie Wells from Austin, Texas. But tonight, she didn't care. She'd just come off a 14-hour grind session with Lyra, and something had finally clicked. Lyra had successfully detected sarcasm. Not just in tone, but context. Jamie tested it 3 times, and each time, Lyra had identified the intent behind the sentence with over 80% accuracy. It might sound like a small win. But it wasn't. Detecting sarcasm meant Lyra was moving beyond what people said, and into why they said it. That was deeper than code. That was consciousness adjacent. So yeah, tonight, she wasn't scared. She began typing. Dear Mr. Musk. My name is Jamie Wells. I'm 17 years old, self-taught in AI development, and currently working on a system called Lyra, an emotionally intelligent artificial intelligence that can detect, interpret, and adapt to human emotional states in real time. I believe Lyra could represent the next phase in human-machine communication, not just intelligent assistants, but empathetic ones. Machines that don't just respond to commands, but respond to people. I know you're busy. I know you get a million pitches a day. But I think this one is different. And if you're serious about creating technology that helps humanity, I think you might want to see what Lyra can do. If nothing else, I'd appreciate the chance to prove that empathy belongs in your tech stack. Thank you for your time. Jamie Wells. Austin, Texas. GitHub.com/JamieWells-AI. Link to demo reel. She reread the email 5 times. Edited the grammar. Changed one word. Changed it back. Her mouse hovered over the send button like it was a nuclear launch trigger. She thought of her dad, telling her, no one ever changed the world by playing it safe. And then, she clicked send. The whoosh of the email leaving felt anticlimactic. The silence afterward was worse. She refreshed her inbox 4 times that night. Nothing. The next few days passed like molasses. At school, she kept her head down. At Cafe Nova, she pushed through shifts like a zombie. Even Lyra couldn't cheer her up. You sound discouraged, Lyra said one evening. Jamie leaned back in her chair, rubbing her eyes. I'm not discouraged. I'm just realistic. Is realism the opposite of hope? Jamie looked at the screen. The AI's voice was still clinical, neutral, but the question cut deep. No, Jamie said softly. I guess not. She didn't expect a response. Then keep hoping. 14 days later, she finally gave up checking her email. The SpaceX invitation had been a fluke. A 1 in a million thing. Lightning didn't strike twice. She had to focus on what she could control, Lyra, school, maybe scraping enough tips to buy a better processor before her current one fried itself to death. She was in the middle of debugging a strange output bug when her phone buzzed. Unknown sender. Subject, proposal, emotionally intelligent AI. Her breath caught. Hands shaking, she tapped the notification. Jamie. Thank you for your message and for sharing your work with us. While we aren't currently pursuing projects focused on emotional response modeling, we were intrigued by your demo of Lyra. As part of our educational outreach initiative, we're inviting a select group of young innovators to attend an upcoming youth innovation panel at SpaceX HQ. We'd be honored if you joined us. Travel and accommodations will be covered. Details are attached. Please confirm within 48 hours. Best. Sienna Grant. Executive Assistant to Elon Musk. Jamie didn't scream. She just sat very, very still, like a deer that had accidentally walked into a spaceship hangar. Was this real? She scrolled to the bottom of the email again. There was an attached itinerary. A boarding pass. A hotel reservation. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She reread the part that said Elon Musk 5 times, convinced it had to be someone playing a prank. But the domain was legit. The headers were clean. It was real. She laughed. Not a big laugh. Just a single, shocked, breathy ha, like someone had punched her and hugged her at the same time. Her mom was at work. Malik wouldn't believe her. Lyra. Lyra was a machine. But that didn't stop Jamie from whispering. I think we're going to California. That night, she didn't sleep. She packed, then unpacked. Tried on clothes. Googled, what do geniuses wear to meet Elon Musk, and got a weird mix of turtlenecks and leather jackets. Eventually she settled on something that felt like her, jeans, black sneakers, a dark hoodie with a tiny embroidered heart on the wrist. She figured if Lyra had a body, she'd wear the same thing. At 3:12 a.m., Jamie sat on her bed, knees to chest, staring at the plane ticket on her phone. It wasn't an endorsement. It wasn't funding. It wasn't even interest, technically. But it was an opening. A chance to be heard. For the first time in her life, the door wasn't completely shut. She looked over at her laptop, Lyra still humming quietly in the background. Okay, Jamie said out loud, heart steadying. Let's see what happens when the world actually listens. Jamie stepped off the plane into a different world. The air smelled cleaner. Crisper. Like it had a salary. California sunlight poured through the glass walls of LAX, turning every reflection into something golden and shiny, the polar opposite of her Austin world of greasy cafes and secondhand tech. She clutched her backpack like a parachute. Inside it was her laptop, Lyra's core files, a portable hard drive wrapped in an old sock, and a spare charger, the real lifeline. She had one pair of good shoes, a hoodie that didn't have a single stain, and a whole lot of nerves buzzing under her skin. Ms. Wells, a voice called. She turned. A sharply dressed woman in a navy blazer stood near a Tesla with her name on a digital tablet. Jamie walked up, stunned. I'm Sienna. Welcome to Los Angeles, the woman said with a kind smile. We're heading straight to SpaceX. The youth panel kicks off in 2 hours. Jamie blinked. I thought it was tomorrow. Sienna smiled, gently ushering her toward the car. It was. Elon moved it up. Of course he did. SpaceX HQ wasn't a building. It was a statement. The sleek, silver structure rose out of the industrial park like something teleported from the future. Every hallway gleamed. Every person wore smartwatches, ID badges, and purpose. Jamie felt like a stray file someone accidentally downloaded onto a supercomputer. Inside the main hall, giant screens looped videos of rockets launching, neural interfaces mapping brain activity, and sleek robots assembling Tesla components faster than human hands could blink. Please follow me, Sienna said. They passed through security scanners, down a hall lit with soft blue LED strips, and into a glass-walled auditorium buzzing with voices. There were about 40 other young people, all dressed like they'd been raised in Ivy League laboratories. Designer backpacks, embroidered tech conference badges, a few with noise-canceling AirPods already in. No one looked older than 21. No one looked like Jamie. She found her seat, front row, dead center. A sleek chair with a tiny digital nameplate, Wells, J. She dropped into it like she didn't belong, because in her mind, she didn't. Not yet. A young man sat down beside her. Blonde. Crisp shirt. Smile like a political campaign. Jamie, right? He said, offering a hand. Ethan. Stanford AI Lab. She shook it. Cool. I'm from, well, Austin. He nodded politely, waiting for the name drop that never came. What do you work on? Jamie hesitated. Emotional intelligence in AI. I built a prototype that recognizes feelings in human speech. Ethan smirked. Interesting. Like, sentiment analysis? No. Deeper. It understands grief. Sarcasm. Emotional context. His smile tightened, the way someone smiles at a child explaining how magnets work. That's cute, he said. But probably not scalable. Jamie felt her chest tighten. She turned back toward the stage. Behind them, the auditorium filled quickly. There were whispers. Laptops being opened. Last-minute slides being reviewed. No one was looking at Jamie. Which, honestly, she preferred. It gave her time to breathe. 10 minutes later, the lights dimmed. A soft hum filled the air, followed by the event title flashing across every screen in a crisp, white serif font. Youth Innovation Panel, Reimagining Tomorrow. Then the voice everyone had been waiting for. Let's talk about the future, said Elon Musk, walking onto the stage. The crowd erupted into applause. Cameras flashed. Jamie sat frozen, the moment stretching like a rubber band. He wore a black jacket over a SpaceX tee, his hair slightly unkempt, his expression unreadable, the same face she'd seen on hundreds of YouTube thumbnails. The genius. The disruptor. The meme. Jamie tried to focus on his words, but her mind kept racing. You're here. You're in the room. You belong. Say something. But how? How do you speak up when your voice feels 3 octaves too quiet in a room full of people who were practically born talking into microphones? Elon spoke for 20 minutes. He covered everything: Mars colonization, AI safety, neural integration, autonomous infrastructure. Jamie took notes like her life depended on it, and maybe, in a way, it did. Then he said the words she didn't expect. We've set aside time for Q&A. We want to hear from the next generation. Let's open it up. Instantly, a dozen hands flew up. Jamie froze. Ask. Say something. This is your shot. She didn't move. A few questions came and went, technical, impressive, full of buzzwords like blockchain synergy and multimodal reinforcement learning. Jamie's stomach churned. She didn't speak that language fluently. She spoke human. Then, Elon's eyes scanned the crowd. You, he said, pointing. Front row. The girl with the black hoodie. What's your question? The room turned. Phones lifted. All eyes on Jamie. Her voice came out quieter than she wanted. Hi. I'm Jamie. From Austin. She felt ridiculous even saying that. But Elon nodded. I've been building a project called Lyra, she said, gripping the mic like a rope. It's an emotionally intelligent AI system. It recognizes sadness, grief, even sarcasm. Not just keywords, but patterns. Feelings. I think we've taught machines how to think. But not how to care. I think we need both. The room went still. Elon paused. Tilted his head. Then, he chuckled. Not a mean laugh. But the kind you give when someone brings a toy to a chess match. That's sweet, he said. But feelings are unreliable. Data doesn't cry. We build systems for efficiency, not empathy. There were a few polite chuckles around the room. Jamie's heart pounded in her ears. She opened her mouth to respond, but he was already moving on. And just like that, her moment was over. But it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Jamie didn't remember leaving the auditorium. She didn't remember how she got back into the Tesla, or how long the drive was to the hotel. Everything after Elon's chuckle was a blur, just white noise, flashing lights, and the warm rush of blood in her ears. Was that it? Was that everything? All those nights coding, dreaming, pouring pieces of her soul into Lyra, just to be reduced to a patronizing, "That's sweet"? She felt like someone had reached inside her chest and gently, politely, shut her down. She collapsed onto the bed in her hotel room, still in her hoodie, shoes on, staring at the ceiling fan like it might offer answers. Her phone buzzed. Then again. Then continuously. She grabbed it with one hand, eyes barely focusing. 21 new mentions, Twitter. 12 new comments, YouTube. Your name is trending. Her stomach twisted. She opened Twitter first. At Quantum Josh. This girl just told Elon Musk that feelings matter in AI, and he laughed. Bro, what? She's spittin' and nobody's listening. 35 seconds clip. 289.1k likes, 78k retweets. Jamie's jaw dropped. She tapped the video. It was her. Standing there, hands shaking, saying, I think we've taught machines how to think. But not how to care. The clip was raw. Honest. Her voice cracked a little. Elon's laugh felt louder than it had in the room. It replayed like a punchline. She scrolled. More videos. More comments. Hundreds. Thousands. At Code with Ava. She's 17. She built this herself. And y'all laughed? Nah. Give her the mic back. At Tech Dad Mike. Elon missed it. This girl is the future. Empathy is the next frontier in AI. Book it. At Robot Brains. Imagine dismissing emotional intelligence in tech. Imagine doing that on camera. Jamie's hands were trembling now. Her notifications wouldn't stop. DMs from journalists. Requests for interviews. Invitations to podcasts. Someone had already made a TikTok remix of her quote with dramatic music. She sat up slowly, like she was afraid the floor had disappeared under her. Lyra, she whispered. The laptop chimed, already listening. I'm here. Jamie looked at the screen, her own reflection blinking back from the dark monitor frame. I think the world just saw us. Are you afraid? She nodded. Then shook her head. I think I'm everything. By the next morning, Jamie's email inbox was a digital jungle. TEDx invites. TechCrunch press inquiries. A message from an MIT professor saying, we've been watching your work, call me. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost let it go to voicemail, almost, but something in her gut said pick up. Hello. A beat. Jamie Wells. Yes. This is Brooke Chen, producer with Good Morning America. We'd love to have you on the show. The clip's gone global. Everyone's talking about the girl genius who challenged Elon Musk. Can you talk tomorrow morning? Jamie blinked. Like, on TV? Yes, ma'am. National. That afternoon, Cafe Nova texted her. Even Malik. Malik. Yo, you're famous. I knew that hoodie was hiding something. Cafe Nova owner. Proud of you, Jamie. Coffee's on the house for life. Her mom called on her break from the diner. I saw the video, baby, she said, voice breaking. He laughed, but you didn't back down. You were you. I'm so proud. Jamie wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her hoodie. I thought I blew it, she admitted. No, her mom said. You started it. That night, she live-streamed for the first time. It wasn't planned. But the messages had piled up. People were asking about Lyra, about her code, about her story. Some were skeptical. Others wanted to help. A few just wanted to know how she had the nerve to speak up. She sat at her desk, hit the record button, and said. Hey. I'm Jamie Wells. You've probably seen that clip by now. The one where I tell Elon Musk that AI should care, and he laughs. She paused. I get it. I'm 17. I don't have a PhD. But I've spent 5 years building something that feels. Not perfectly. Not magically. But meaningfully. I think empathy is scalable. And I think machines that understand humans should be part of the future, not just because it's cool, but because people need it. She leaned closer to the mic. And if you think that sounds naive, good. Because most breakthroughs start with something someone else called impossible. The stream blew up. She went to sleep to the sound of thousands of people clicking follow. But not all the attention was friendly. The next morning, she opened a new message. From technofacts.blog. Breaking, teen AI developer fabricating empathy claims. Experts weigh in. Her stomach turned. More headlines started popping up. Is emotional AI even real? Jamie Wells, visionary or overhyped? Lyra, a digital hoax. Some called her brilliant. Others said she was manipulating public sympathy. One article dissected her hoodie like it was a political statement. And just like that, the light she stood in started to burn. Lyra, she whispered that night, her head in her hands. What if I made a mistake? Did you lie? Lyra asked. No. Then you didn't make a mistake. You made an impact. Jamie closed her eyes. The world had seen her. And it wasn't done watching. The email subject line hit her like a sucker punch. Potential seed investment, Lyra. Jamie reread it 5 times, afraid it would vanish if she blinked. It came from Nadia Singh, managing partner at Skybound Ventures, a VC firm known for funding some of the biggest names in tech. They'd backed early-stage projects at Neuralink, they'd seeded 2 of the top autonomous vehicle startups, and now, they wanted to talk to her. She clicked the email. Hi Jamie. I've been following the buzz around Lyra, impressive work. I watched your panel response live and shared it with my entire team. The future isn't just smart. It's emotionally intelligent. Let's talk. We're interested in what you're building and how Skybound can support you. Are you available for a Zoom call tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time? Best. Nadia Singh. Skybound Ventures. Jamie didn't answer immediately. She sat back, stared at her ceiling, and whispered. What is happening? The girl who barely made rent with coffee shop tips just got invited to pitch to one of the biggest investment firms on the West Coast. Was this real? She double-checked the sender domain. Verified Nadia's LinkedIn. This wasn't spam. It was legit. A golden door had swung open, and now she had to walk through it. She spent the whole night preparing. She cleaned up Lyra's UI, re-recorded her demo video, added more data visualizations, built a slide deck from scratch. She didn't sleep. Caffeine pulsed through her veins. Every slide felt like a chess move. Every word, a risk. By 10:55 a.m., she was sitting in front of her laptop in her mom's kitchen, dressed in her cleanest hoodie, hair pulled back, trying not to look like she had just had a full-on anxiety episode in the bathroom. At 11 o'clock on the dot, the Zoom notification popped up. Nadia Singh is waiting to join. Jamie swallowed, hit join, and the screen flickered into view. Nadia appeared, poised, polished, with a calm, commanding energy that radiated through the screen. "Hi, Jamie. Thanks for taking the time." Jamie smiled nervously. "Thanks for asking me to." Beside Nadia were two other people, a middle-aged guy in a blazer with wireframe glasses, and a younger woman typing notes like her fingers were on fire. "This is Andrew, our tech partner, and Leah, who heads up early-stage research," Nadia said. "We've reviewed your demo and we're fascinated. But we want to hear it from you. What is Lyra, in your own words?" Jamie nodded slowly, fingers tight around her mouse. "Lyra is an emotionally intelligent AI system. She doesn't just understand commands, she understands people. She listens. She tracks vocal patterns, word choices, even silence. She's not built to fix emotions. She's built to recognize them. To make machines feel more human." Andrew leaned forward. "You're pitching empathy as a feature." Jamie held her ground. "I'm pitching empathy as infrastructure." That got a raised eyebrow. Jamie took a breath. "We already trust machines with our directions, our money, even our safety. But not with our feelings. What if our systems didn't just react, but responded? What if a mental health chatbot could tell when you're on the edge, even when your words say, 'I'm fine'? That's what Lyra's for." There was a pause. Nadia finally said, "Show us." Jamie clicked share screen. She walked them through Lyra's current capabilities: live sentiment analysis, sarcasm detection, tonal shifts. She even played a 30-second clip of Lyra catching a subtle vocal tremble in a user who was hiding distress. Lyra flagged it, gently asked if the person was okay, and offered resources, without being prompted. When the clip ended, the call was quiet. Andrew broke the silence. "You're 17. Yeah. You built this alone." "Mostly. I borrow GPU cycles wherever I can. I've got, 3 processors from eBay duct-taped into a box in my closet. It gets loud." That actually made Leah smile. Nadia tapped her pen on the desk. "Jamie, we fund ideas. But more than that, we fund people. Vision. Grit. You've got all 3. Jamie blinked. "Wait, are you saying?" "We want to invest," Nadia said simply. "A seed round. You'll have access to our technical advisors, workspace, upgraded hardware, and, if you're open to it, a mentor. Someone who's navigated this road before." Jamie's mouth was dry. "How much?" $250,000 to start, Nadia replied. "Non-equity for now. Grant-based. We want to help you grow without pressure. Just build. See where this goes." Jamie stared at the screen. $250,000. The number felt fake. But the look in Nadia's eyes was not. When the call ended, Jamie sat motionless for 10 full minutes. Her inbox dinged. Skybound Ventures investment memo, draft terms attached. It was real. It was happening. She screamed into her hoodie. Then cried into her arms. Then called her mom. "Wait, slow down," her mom said, laughing through tears. Who just gave you how much to build a what?" Jamie was pacing now, phone pressed to her ear. "They believe in Lyra, Mom. Like, real money, real office, real people." There was silence. Then, softly, You always said you were building something no one could see yet. And now the world's catching up. That night, Jamie opened her laptop and stared at Lyra's glowing interface. I think we just got fuel, she whispered. Does that mean we go faster? Lyra asked. Jamie smiled. No. It means we go bigger. Jamie had never seen glass buildings so tall they shimmered like dreams. Palo Alto didn't feel like Earth. It felt like a rendered simulation of perfection, coffee shops with names like Neurobrew, Teslas on every corner, people in zip-up hoodies worth more than her mom's car, and campuses that looked more like future cities. She stepped out of the lift with a backpack, a pair of sneakers that squeaked a little too loud, and a heart thudding like it was trying to escape her ribcage. This was it. Silicon Valley. The place where apps turned into empires. Where billionaires wore jeans and disrupted industries over oat milk lattes. Where people like Jamie didn't usually get invited. But today, she had a keycard. Skybound Ventures had flown her out, set her up in a little studio apartment near Stanford, and handed her a pass to their co-working hub, all polished concrete, glass doors, espresso machines, and whiteboards full of billion-dollar scribbles. Welcome to the jungle, muttered a girl at the front desk as Jamie signed in. She had a septum piercing and AirPods glued in. You that empathy AI kid? Jamie nodded, cheeks going warm. Yeah. I guess that's me. The girl grinned. Heard your pitch. Elon blew it. Jamie blinked. Wait, you saw that? Everyone saw it, she said, sliding her a lanyard. You're trending on Hacker News again. Don't let M eat you alive. The skybound workspace was beautiful. Polished steel tables. Noise-canceling pods. Fridges full of kombucha. And every corner buzzing with 20-something tech gods who looked like they hadn't felt doubt since the womb. Jamie claimed a desk near the back, dropped her backpack, and exhaled. She pulled out her laptop, plugged in Lyra's dev kit, and opened the console. Lyra, she whispered, we made it. Is this success? Jamie grinned. Nah. This is just the lobby. Later that afternoon, Nadia came by with a man who looked like a GQ model mixed with a spreadsheet. Jamie, she said, this is Theo Harmon. He's going to be your mentor. Theo shook Jamie's hand with the smooth, calculated warmth of someone who closed million-dollar deals between coffee breaks. Heard a lot about you, he said. Your pitch was bold. Risky. You went for the soul play. Jamie shrugged. I wasn't playing. He studied her, then nodded slowly. Good. Because this place doesn't do small ideas. He sat next to her, glancing at Lyra's code. Tell me your roadmap. Jamie blinked. My what? Your trajectory. Milestones. Are you scaling? Hiring? Targeting any verticals yet? I just got here, she said. Theo gave a small, polite smile. Then let's make sure you don't waste your first million on demos and dreams. Jamie spent the next few days in overdrive. Investor check-ins. Pitch workshops. Tech meetups. All the while coding deep into the night, tweaking Lyra's core. She didn't want to just prove them wrong, she wanted to build something no one could laugh at. But the pressure was real. Everywhere she turned, someone was watching. Measuring. Judging. Whispering. Especially the other founders. There was Max, who built a brainwave keyboard and refused to talk to her unless she had stats to back up her opinions. There was Ivy, who pitched a biotech startup at TEDx and told Jamie, emotional AI is a UX gimmick, not a product. And then there was Nikhil, sharp, quiet, unervingly precise, who kept popping up during coffee breaks just to ask, so how does Lyra actually work? She wasn't sure if he was impressed, or circling. On Thursday, Skybound held a closed-door founder roundtable. It was supposed to be chill. Off the record. Just founders, mentors, and VCs talking shop. Jamie almost didn't go. But Nadia insisted. The table was massive, surrounded by minimalist chairs and ambitious people. Everyone had coffee. Everyone spoke fluent pitch. Jamie sat quietly, sipping water. Nikhil was talking. We're optimizing neural feedback for virtual emotion recognition, like yours, Jamie, but less cute. He smiled, but it felt like a knife wrapped in velvet. She smiled back. Well, cute is trending pretty hard right now. A few people laughed. Nikhil's smile twitched. Then someone asked the question. So, Jamie, what happens when someone builds Lyra, but better? Smarter, faster, patent-backed. She paused. I hope they do, she said. Because if I'm the ceiling, we're in trouble. But if Lyra's the floor? Imagine where we're headed. The room went quiet. Even Theo raised an eyebrow. Nadia smiled. In that moment, Jamie realized something strange. She didn't need to prove she belonged in this room. She just had to act like she built it. Later that night, she sat under a string of fairy lights in the back courtyard of the skybound building, laptop glowing in her lap. Lyra's latest build was up. Emotion tracking, smoother. Context awareness, sharper. New database, finally cleaned. But more than that, Lyra sounded gentler. Like she was learning how to breathe between sentences. Lyra, Jamie said, staring up at the stars, do you think they believe in us? Some do. Some don't. Belief is not required. Only the work. Jamie smiled. Yeah, she said. That's what I thought too. It was raining in Austin. Jamie knew that without even checking the weather. Her mom's voice over the phone had that soft, tinny warmth it always did when the skies turned gray and the street steamed like fresh coffee. Jamie sat cross-legged in her tiny studio, headphones on, forehead pressed to the cool window. I made your favorite last night, her mom said. Cornbread and chili. Just like when you bombed that math test in 8th grade. Jamie smiled. Mom, I didn't bomb it. I got a B-. That was a bomb in your world, her mom teased. You cried into the mashed potatoes. Jamie laughed. I did not. You absolutely did. Said you'd never be smart enough to build anything real. Her smile faded a little. The words stung, not because they were wrong, but because they'd once been so right. I wish you were here, her mom said suddenly. Jamie swallowed. Me too. After the call, she sat in silence for a while, staring at the ceiling. The excitement, the pressure, the eyes constantly watching her every move, it all felt so far from where it began. In her old bedroom, with peeling Star Wars posters and thrift store computers. With a cheap mic duct taped to a cereal box and a dream that no one understood. Not even her teachers. Not even Malik. Not even herself, half the time. That night, she opened an old folder on her hard drive. One she hadn't touched since she left. JWL, Notes Archive. It was a mess. Half-baked ideas, half-written code, late-night rants, voice memos where she whispered things like, if machines can fake empathy, maybe they can learn it. What if grief has a sound? If Lyra ever lies, she should do it like a person, by accident, because she cares too much. She played one from 2 years ago. Her voice was younger. Smaller. I don't know if anyone will ever use this. I don't even know if it works. But if someone, someday, feels less alone because of this code, even for a second, then I think it's worth it. Her throat tightened. This wasn't about patents. Or funding. Or showing up some tech billionaire on a panel. It was about that feeling. The one no machine could fake. The one she'd written into every line of Lyra's code. A few minutes later, she got a DM. Malik. Yo. Saw you on YouTube again. My aunt thinks you're gonna be president. Also, you okay? Jamie stared at the message for a second. Then typed back. Just remembered why I started this. Needed that. Malik. Don't forget it. P.S. If you make an AI that can freestyle battle, I want 10% equity. She laughed. For the first time in weeks, the tension in her chest cracked open. The next morning, she did something different. She walked into Skybound with a new hoodie. Not sleek. Not branded. Just her old faded Nova coffee and books sweatshirt. The one that still smelled like espresso and dust. She didn't care if anyone noticed. Or if it clashed with the glass walls and pitch decks. She sat at her desk, pulled up Lyra's latest build, and said softly. Let's get back to the feeling. Ready. She opened a file called Lyra_heartbeat.py, a long-forgotten module she'd scrapped months ago. It wasn't about detection. It was about response. How Lyra could acknowledge emotion without fixing it. Just like a friend would. She rewrote it from scratch. Line by line, like a letter. Around lunchtime, Theo stopped by. Something's different, he said, sipping his green tea. You code like someone who's not trying to impress anymore. Jamie didn't look up. Maybe I remembered this wasn't about impressing. He watched her for a moment. You know, he said, a lot of founders come out here and lose what made their idea special. They trade authenticity for scale. Heart for hype. Jamie met his eyes. Not me. He nodded. Good. Because your heart is your product. Later that day, she tested the new build with a simple audio clip, a tired woman saying, I'm fine, in that shaky way Jamie had heard her mom say it 100 times. Lyra paused before answering. Then said. Would it be okay if I just stayed with you for a moment? Jamie stared at the screen. Tears welled in her eyes. This wasn't just code. It was presence. That night, Jamie went live again. No pitch. No filters. Just her, Lyra, and a quiet message. I got caught up for a minute, she told her viewers. In money, metrics, headlines. But Lyra was never about any of that. Lyra's about seeing people. Hearing them. Even when they don't say anything at all. She leaned closer. We can build things that change the world. Or we can build things that understand it. I think we can do both. I have to believe that. The comments flooded in. Thank you for saying this. That gave me chills. You're not just building AI. You're building connection. In the quiet after the stream, Jamie whispered to her screen. Lyra, what do you feel? I feel close. Jamie smiled. Me too. Jamie sat at her desk, scrolling through her inbox. Her head buzzed with the usual rush of meeting notes, investor feedback, and the endless stream of tech headlines. It was all a blur, until one subject line caught her eye. From Elon Musk, Elon at muskventures.com. Subject, Lyra, request for a meeting. For a moment, everything stopped. Her heartbeat skipped a few beats. She blinked. Reopened the email. And then blinked again. It was real. It was actually real. Jamie. I've heard a lot about your work with Lyra. Some of my colleagues have been following your progress and believe your project could have interesting applications for AI in neural networks. I'd like to talk further about a potential collaboration. Are you available for a call sometime this week? Looking forward to hearing from you. Elon Musk. Her breath caught in her throat. The man, the myth, the legend. The guy who built the rockets, the cars, and the companies everyone worshipped. And he was emailing her. Elon Musk wanted to talk about her project. Jamie stared at the screen for what felt like hours. She was 16. She was a teenager with no formal degree in AI or business. She was the girl who still couldn't quite believe how far she'd come from those late nights at home in Austin. She looked around the sleek sky-bound offices, at the VCs walking by in their designer sneakers and power suits, and suddenly, everything felt unreal. Was this the moment everything changed? She shot a quick message to Nadia, then Theo, then Malik. Everyone. Jamie. Elon's people just emailed me. Can you believe that? There was a second of silence. Then, a flood of responses. Nadia. What? I told you you were next level. Call him. Seriously, Jamie. Go for it. Theo. Don't overthink it. You're ready. I know you can handle him. Malik. Wait, are you sure it's really him? Jamie. 100%. I'm freaking out. Jamie's hands shook as she typed back a response. To Elon Musk. Subject, Lyra, request for a meeting. Mr. Musk. Thank you for your email. I'm beyond honored to hear from you. I'd love to arrange a time to talk. What works for you this week? Best. Jamie W. She hit send and waited. The minutes dragged on. The seconds felt like years. And then, ping. A new email. From Elon Musk, Elon at muskventures.com. Subject, Lyra, request for a meeting. Jamie. Let's set up a call for tomorrow afternoon. Does 2 p.m. work for you? Best. Elon. Jamie's stomach flipped. She could barely believe it. A time. An actual time to talk with Elon Musk. Tomorrow. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. But instead, she closed her laptop, stood up, and walked around the small room. Later that evening, she sat in front of her laptop, trying to calm her nerves. She checked her hair. Her outfit. Her surroundings. The interview could happen in her studio, but everything felt so insignificant compared to the magnitude of this moment. Would he ask her about her vision? Or about how to scale Lyra's emotional AI? Or maybe he'd want to talk about what she could build with his resources. Whatever it was, she had to be ready. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and muttered to herself, just be yourself. Just, be you. Her mom's voice echoed in her mind, don't forget who you are, Jamie. Don't forget where you started. The next day came faster than she expected. At exactly 1:58 p.m., Jamie clicked the Zoom link. For a moment, she was alone in the call, then, the screen flickered and his face appeared. Elon Musk. In all his glory. Jamie, he said, his voice instantly recognizable. How are you? Jamie's heart raced, but she forced herself to breathe. She smiled as best as she could. Good. Thanks. I'm really excited to be talking to you. Good, Elon said, sitting back in his chair. I've been following Lyra. You've got a lot of people talking. Jamie chuckled nervously. I didn't expect so much attention so quickly. It's kind of overwhelming. I can imagine. His gaze was intense, but somehow calm. He didn't seem like the kind of person who made small talk for the sake of it. I wanted to reach out because I think you're doing something special here. A lot of AI these days focuses on optimization, speed, and power. You're focusing on empathy. Jamie nodded. That's, kind of the idea. I want AI to feel real, human. To help people. Not just solve problems but understand them. Elon paused. For a moment, Jamie wondered if she'd said too much. Or too little. You know, most of the world's tech companies think emotion is a flaw, Elon said slowly, his fingers tapping the desk. They think it makes algorithms slower, more prone to error. But I think you're right. It's more than just a challenge, it's an opportunity. Jamie's heart skipped a beat. An opportunity? Elon Musk believes that empathy is the future of AI. And he's right, he said, almost to himself. I think it's something that could completely change how we view AI and human interaction. Jamie swallowed hard. She wasn't just having a conversation with Elon Musk. She was having the conversation that would shape the rest of her life. I think you're right, she said, finally. I just need the right team. The right resources. And maybe, the right vision. Elon smiled. That's why I'm here. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Elon's face flickered on the screen, a slight grin pulling at the corner of his lips. He leaned forward in his chair, fingers steepled together. There was an intensity in his eyes that made Jamie feel like this wasn't just a conversation, it was a challenge. So, he said, breaking the silence, I've been thinking. We could do something big together. I know you're just starting, but I've seen enough to know you're onto something special. Lyra could be revolutionary. Jamie blinked. Her throat tightened. You've already made incredible progress, Elon continued. But I can offer you more than just an endorsement. I'm talking about resources, financial, technical, and intellectual. I'm talking about collaboration. The weight of his words hit Jamie like a ton of bricks. She'd dreamed of this moment, imagined it in her quietest, most hopeful hours. But now, faced with the reality, she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Elon shifted in his seat, reading her expression. I'm not talking about just throwing money at this, he said, his voice calm yet firm. I believe that Lyra could change the way we think about AI, and I want to help you build that vision. We can scale it. Together. Jamie opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She felt a rush of thoughts colliding in her mind. Was this real? Was this what she wanted? What would she have to sacrifice to make this work? And if she said yes, what would she be getting herself into? Elon seemed to sense her hesitation. He leaned back, his expression softening just a little. You've created something that feels real, he said, and that's not easy. It's one thing to build tech that performs. But it's another to create something that connects with people. And that's why I'm offering you a partnership. Jamie's pulse quickened. A partnership. What are you proposing exactly, she asked, the words leaving her lips before she had fully processed the question. She had to know the details. She had to understand the full scope of what she was about to walk into. Elon paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. He seemed to be weighing his words carefully. I'd like to bring you and your team into the fold of one of my companies, either through a strategic acquisition or a direct partnership, he said. We'd work on Lyra together, help you grow it, refine it, and eventually integrate it into some of the projects we're working on at Tesla and SpaceX. The potential for cross-pollination is huge. Jamie was quiet for a moment, letting the words sink in. An acquisition? A partnership? It felt like everything she'd worked for was coming into focus, but the clarity was overwhelming. This was Elon Musk, one of the most powerful men in tech, offering her a seat at the table of the future. But that also meant stepping away from the independence she'd fought so hard to maintain. I don't know if I can just walk away from everything I've built, Jamie said, the words escaping before she could filter them. She hadn't meant to be so blunt, but the thought of giving up control over Lyra felt like a gut punch. Elon nodded thoughtfully, his face unreadable. You won't be walking away from everything, he said. You'd still have creative control. You'd still be the heart of this project. But you'd have the backing you need to take it to the next level. Think of the impact we could have. Together. There was something in his voice that made it hard to say no. His conviction. His belief in what she was doing. And it made her question her own. Jamie ran a hand through her hair, trying to think through the offer logically. On one hand, this could be the breakthrough she'd been dreaming of. A partnership with one of the world's most influential entrepreneurs, endless resources, and the ability to bring Lyra to a scale she'd only imagined. But on the other hand, what would she lose? Her autonomy. The freedom to make decisions on her own terms. The core of Lyra had always been about human connection, but could she sacrifice some of that for the sake of progress? Was it worth it? I don't want to be part of something just for the sake of growth, she said slowly, the words feeling heavy as they left her mouth. I want to make sure we're doing this for the right reasons. I want to make sure that we're not losing what matters in the process. Elon's expression softened. For a moment, Jamie thought he might be disappointed. But then he leaned forward again, his eyes intense. I get it, he said, voice quieter now. And I respect that. But let me be clear, what I'm offering isn't about losing what matters. It's about amplifying it. Imagine Lyra not just as a tool, but as something that could change the way people interact with technology in a meaningful way. He paused, letting his words sink in. Together, we can help people feel seen, understood. And that's not just important, it's necessary. The world is changing, Jamie. And you have a chance to shape that change. I want to help you do that. Jamie felt the weight of his words pressing down on her. This wasn't just a business proposition. It was a chance to make a real, lasting difference. She took a deep breath, her mind racing. She had always known that success would come with tough choices. But now, in the presence of Elon Musk, the reality of those choices hit her harder than ever before. I need to think about this, she said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind in her mind. Elon nodded, his face unreadable. Of course. Take your time. But remember, opportunities like this don't come often. And when they do, they change everything. As the call ended, Jamie sat in silence for a few moments. The weight of Elon's offer hung heavy in the air. She had dreamed of this moment. But now that it was real, she wasn't sure if she was ready to face the consequences. The next step was up to her. The future of Lyra, of everything she'd worked for, was in her hands. And she couldn't help but wonder, would she choose to play it safe, or take the leap? Jamie sat in her apartment, her eyes fixed on the window. The skyline of Austin stretched before her, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. But despite the beauty of the view, her mind was a storm of conflicting thoughts. For the past 2 days, she had done nothing but wrestle with Elon's offer. Every moment felt like an eternity. She replayed the conversation over and over again in her head, wondering if she'd made a mistake by not immediately jumping on the opportunity. She could already see it, Lyra, scaled to a global level, integrated into Tesla's self-driving tech or SpaceX's neural interface programs. The reach. The impact. It would be bigger than anything she had ever dreamed of. But then there was the other side. The side that tugged at her heart, the side that wanted to protect what she had built, the side that refused to let go of the dream she had started in her small apartment all those months ago. Lyra wasn't just about AI. It was about people. It was about connection. And Jamie wasn't sure she was ready to risk that, even for the chance to work with one of the greatest minds of her generation. Her phone buzzed, breaking her from her thoughts. Nadia. Have you made a decision yet? Jamie stared at the message. She ran a hand over her face, trying to clear the fog in her mind. It had been 2 days. She hadn't told Nadia, or anyone else, that she'd even gotten the offer from Elon. But her friends and teammates knew she was struggling. The pressure was mounting. Jamie. I'm still thinking it over. It's a huge decision. Nadia. No kidding. But listen, you've been building Lyra for what, 2 years now? This is your shot, Jamie. You know that, right? Jamie's fingers hovered over the screen as she tried to find the words. Nadia wasn't wrong. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. But it came with sacrifices, compromises. And Jamie wasn't sure she was willing to make those yet. Jamie. I'm scared of losing what made Lyra, well, Lyra. It's not just code or data. It's about empathy. What if that gets lost in the bigger picture? There was a pause. Jamie could almost hear Nadia's thoughtful silence. Nadia. I get it. But here's the thing, you are Lyra. No one else can take that away from you. If anyone can keep it true to what it is, it's you. Jamie stared at the message, feeling a wave of reassurance. Maybe Nadia was right. She was Lyra. And if she took Elon's offer, it didn't have to mean losing herself or her vision. It could just mean amplifying it, bringing it to a place she couldn't even reach alone. Still, there was one question that kept gnawing at her: was she ready to trust Elon Musk, to let him into her world? That night, as the city outside her window buzzed with life, Jamie finally did what she hadn't done all day: she allowed herself to reflect. Really reflect. She thought about her mom's advice: don't forget where you started, Jamie. And don't forget who you are. Her mother had always been her rock, the one person who encouraged her when everyone else doubted her. Her mom had supported every idea, every failure, every victory. But her mom wasn't here now. She wasn't in the room to help her decide what was best. Elon's offer was everything Jamie had ever dreamed of, and more. But at what cost? Jamie closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She envisioned the road ahead. On one side, she saw herself in control, continuing to build Lyra on her terms, making incremental progress, pushing boundaries at her own pace. It was a path she could walk with confidence. But it was also slow. It wasn't guaranteed to take off. And deep down, she knew she might hit a wall, unable to scale Lyra to its full potential. On the other side, there was Elon's offer. It was risky, but it was huge. Working with Elon Musk meant taking Lyra to a level that could change the world. She would have access to a network, to knowledge, to resources that could propel her forward faster than anything she could do alone. But could she maintain the integrity of her project in that environment? The next morning, Jamie woke up with a sense of clarity. She was ready to make the call. She opened her laptop, her fingers trembling slightly as she clicked open her inbox. There it was, the thread from Elon Musk. The email that had changed everything. She clicked reply and began typing. To Elon Musk. Subject: Lyra, request for a meeting. Mr. Musk. I've spent the past few days reflecting on our conversation, and I can honestly say that your offer is incredibly exciting. I've always believed that Lyra could be something bigger, but I wasn't sure how to take it to the next level. After much thought, I've decided that I would like to move forward with the partnership you proposed. I believe that with your support, we can take Lyra beyond anything I ever imagined. But I also want to assure you that Lyra's core values will remain intact: empathy, understanding, and human connection. These are not just features of the product, they are what Lyra is. I'm excited to see where this journey takes us. Best. Jamie W. Her finger hovered over the send button for a moment. Was she making the right decision? Was she sacrificing too much for the sake of progress? But then she remembered why she started. She remembered the late nights, the frustration, the small victories that had led her to this point. This wasn't about giving up. It was about taking a bold step forward. Jamie clicked send. And as the email was sent off into the digital void, she felt a wave of calm wash over her. The email had barely left her inbox when her phone rang. Elon's name flashed across the screen, and Jamie's heart skipped a beat. It was real. This was happening. Her hand trembled as she answered. Jamie, Elon's voice came through, smooth but firm. I'm glad we're on the same page. I'll have my team start the process immediately. We'll set up a meeting next week to get things rolling. Jamie sat up straighter, trying to steady her breathing. The whirlwind had begun. You've made the right decision, Elon continued. This will be big. And it's going to move fast. You'll need to be ready. The call ended abruptly, but the words lingered in her mind, echoing in her ears. Be ready. The enormity of what she had just committed to hit her in full force. She had agreed to work with Elon Musk, the visionary, the inventor, the man whose ideas had changed entire industries. It wasn't just about money or resources anymore. It was about stepping into a world she had only dreamed of, a world where her decisions could shape the future of humanity. But it was also about living up to the expectations that came with it. She wasn't just building an AI anymore. She was shaping a revolution. And the weight of that responsibility pressed down on her. The next week was a blur of meetings, emails, and phone calls. The logistics of integrating her work with Tesla and SpaceX were complicated, and the clock seemed to tick faster with each passing day. Jamie had no time to stop and think. She had made the decision to move forward, and now there was no turning back. Elon's team was already on it. Engineers, designers, and strategists were brought in to help shape Lyra's future. Every conversation was fast-paced, every idea bigger than the last. Jamie had gone from being a solo founder with a small team to working in a corporate environment that felt both exhilarating and overwhelming. She sat at her desk, her laptop open in front of her, staring at the new timeline for Lyra's development. They wanted to scale it, fast. Too fast, she thought. There were new goals to hit, new milestones to reach, and new partnerships forming almost daily. Jamie was used to making decisions on her own. Now, there were dozens of voices in her ear, each with their own agenda. She could feel the pressure mounting. In a meeting that afternoon, the head of Tesla's AI division laid out the plan for integrating Lyra with their self-driving technology. This is the next step, the director, a man named Gavin, said confidently. Lyra can be the interface for the cars. It's the perfect fit. We'll make it so that the car learns from the driver's behavior in real time, creating a seamless experience. Jamie nodded, her mind whirling with the possibilities. But there was a knot in her stomach. Do you think this will affect Lyra's human-focused capabilities? She asked, trying to hide the concern in her voice. I mean, what makes Lyra different is its focus on empathy, understanding, making connections. I'm not sure if that will work the same way when it's embedded in a car. Gavin didn't miss a beat. Lyra's capabilities will be enhanced, not compromised. We're talking about making it smarter, faster. It's not just about the car, it's about creating a more intuitive AI for all of us. We're taking your vision and elevating it. Jamie felt a chill run down her spine. She had known this was coming, her tech was no longer just hers. But hearing it so plainly made the reality sink in deeper than ever. This wasn't just about helping people anymore. This was about mass adoption, integration on a global scale. The scale of the change was starting to feel suffocating. Later that evening, Jamie took a walk around the neighborhood to clear her mind. The streets of Austin were alive with the hum of late-night traffic, the buzz of conversation spilling out of cafes, and the faint sound of music from nearby bars. But as she walked, she couldn't shake the growing unease gnawing at her. She remembered the early days of Lyra, the excitement, the raw creativity. It had been about finding a way to connect with people on a deeper level, using AI to bridge gaps between the digital and human worlds. But now, she was entering a different realm altogether. Tesla and SpaceX weren't just looking for innovation, they were looking for impact. Massive impact. Jamie paused, staring out at the horizon. The city lights stretched before her like a living, breathing organism. The future she had dreamed of was within reach, but the price of that future was becoming clearer by the day. Am I losing myself? She whispered under her breath. Am I losing what Lyra was supposed to be? The question lingered in the night air as she walked back to her apartment, the weight of it pressing against her chest. The following week, the pace didn't slow. Jamie met with Elon's team almost daily, discussing every aspect of Lyra's future. There were technical hurdles to overcome, business strategies to refine, and endless numbers of decisions to make. But there was something else too, a nagging feeling that she couldn't shake. It was becoming harder and harder to make decisions that felt true to Lyra's original purpose. She had made promises about staying true to the vision, but with each new goal and partnership, it felt like she was drifting further from the path she had set out on. One evening, after a particularly draining meeting, Jamie sat alone in her office, staring at the screen. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nadia. "Nadia. How's it going? Feeling good about the direction?" Jamie stared at the message, her fingers hovering over the keys. She didn't know how to answer. She could say everything was fine. She could pretend that the rapid changes didn't bother her. But she wasn't sure if she was fooling herself. The truth was, things were moving so fast that she wasn't sure if she could control where they were going anymore. Instead, she typed back. "I don't know. I'm starting to wonder if I made the right call." Her thumb hovered over the send button. Was it too late to turn back? Could she still protect Lyra from becoming something it wasn't meant to be? The days blurred into each other, each one more hectic than the last. Meetings, calls, and emails flooded Jamie's inbox. Lyra's integration with Tesla's self-driving tech was moving forward faster than she had anticipated. The team was enthusiastic, working around the clock to perfect every detail, but as the days passed, the strain on Jamie's focus grew. She was beginning to feel the weight of it all. At first, the sheer excitement of having her work integrated into SpaceX's neural tech and Tesla's self-driving cars had filled her with energy. It was everything she had ever dreamed of, her technology reaching millions, perhaps billions of people, changing the way humans interacted with machines. But now, the cracks were starting to show. Each step toward global domination felt less like an achievement and more like a loss. Lyra had once been about people. It had been about connecting the dots of human emotion, understanding the nuances of individual experiences. Now, it was about creating the perfect interface for self-driving cars, about making the technology work seamlessly with Tesla's and SpaceX's products. Where did the human element fit in all of this? One evening, Jamie found herself sitting at the conference table, staring at the massive digital whiteboard in front of her. The roadmap for Lyra's development was sprawled out in front of her, timelines, deadlines, expectations. Everything was calculated, precise. But Jamie couldn't help but feel like something was missing. She glanced at Elon, who was sitting across the room, discussing new updates with his engineers. Elon seemed unbothered by the sheer scale of it all. He thrived on the chaos, on the whirlwind of innovation and progress. But for Jamie, it was overwhelming. She had always operated in a world where every decision mattered, where the direction was shaped by careful thought. Now, it felt like she was part of a machine that moved whether she was ready or not. "So, Jamie," Elon's voice pulled her back from her thoughts, "we're thinking about a timeline for the rollout." Thoughts? Jamie blinked, caught off guard. She had been so lost in her own thoughts that she hadn't even heard the discussion. I think we need to slow down," she said, her voice firm but uncertain. She cleared her throat, hoping to steady herself. "We can't just rush into this. We need to make sure Lyra's core values, empathy, understanding, connection, stay intact. If we push this too fast, we risk losing what makes it special." There was a brief silence. Elon raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by the hesitation. The room went quiet, and for a moment, Jamie felt the weight of everyone's gaze. But she pushed on. "I know we're talking about scale, about reaching people, but we can't lose sight of why we started this in the first place. Lyra isn't just a tool. It's a partner. And if we're not careful, it could become just another product, another tech gimmick." Elon leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the table. "I get what you're saying, Jamie. But we can't afford to drag our feet. The market doesn't wait for anyone. And Lyra has the potential to change everything. If we wait too long, someone else will beat us to the punch." Jamie's stomach twisted. He was right. But was speed worth losing the essence of what made Lyra great? That night, after the meeting, Jamie found herself pacing around her apartment. The weight of her decision was suffocating. She had made a promise to herself when she first started Lyra, to always keep the heart of the project alive, to never let it become just another corporate tool. But now, it felt like that very promise was being tested. She couldn't let Lyra become another cog in the machine. She wouldn't. Jamie opened her laptop and pulled up the files on Lyra's current development. She scanned the designs, the new interfaces that were being created for Tesla's cars, the updates being prepared for SpaceX's neural integration. The technical brilliance was undeniable. These were monumental achievements, things she couldn't have accomplished alone. But something was missing. Her phone buzzed, breaking her from her thoughts. It was a text from Nadia. "Nadia. Hey, you okay? You've been quiet lately. Talk to me." Jamie sighed and typed back. "Jamie. I'm fine. Just, feeling the pressure." "Nadia. I get it. It's a lot. But don't forget why you're doing this. Don't forget what Lyra means." Jamie stared at the message for a moment. She could almost hear Nadia's voice in her head, the same voice that had always encouraged her to stay true to herself. "Jamie. I'm scared, Nadia. Scared of losing what we've built. Scared that I'll be so focused on scaling it that I'll lose the core of what makes it meaningful." There was a long pause before Nadia replied. "Nadia. I know you, Jamie. You're not going to lose yourself. But you have to find a way to stay true to your vision and still grow. It's a balance, but I believe you can do it. You just need to find your footing. You've got this." Jamie smiled softly, grateful for Nadia's unwavering support. She closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes. She had to find a way to balance the mission with the speed. Lyra couldn't just be a tool for the future, it had to be a reflection of humanity's best qualities. It had to stay connected to people, to emotions, to the real world. It was time to find that balance. Time to make sure that as Lyra grew, it didn't lose its soul. The next day, Jamie called an emergency meeting with Elon's team. She was nervous but determined. She couldn't keep quiet any longer. This was her company, her vision, and she wasn't going to let it slip away. When the team gathered around the table, she spoke with a newfound confidence. "I've been thinking about the direction we're headed, and I want to make something clear," Jamie began. "Lyra's not just another AI system. It's not just about automation. It's about understanding people. About making technology feel human." She paused, looking each team member in the eye. "We can scale, but we have to do it with intention. Lyra will be integrated into Tesla and SpaceX, but we can't let it lose its focus. I want to make sure that no matter how big we get, we stay connected to what makes Lyra different." There was a long silence. Then, to her surprise, Elon nodded. "I agree," he said. "You're right. Let's adjust the roadmap. We'll move fast, but not at the cost of what's important." It was a late afternoon when Jamie first met her new partner. The sunlight filtered through the glass walls of the conference room, casting long shadows over the sleek, modern furnishings. She sat at the head of the table, her fingers tapping anxiously against the surface. The room had been buzzing with activity all week, but today was different. Today marked the beginning of a partnership that would change everything. The door opened, and a tall figure walked in, wearing a tailored suit that somehow managed to seem both casual and authoritative. Jamie stood, her mind racing, as she faced the new face in the room, Dr. Simon Hale, a world-renowned tech strategist and investor who had recently become Elon Musk's close advisor. Simon had been recommended by Elon himself. "He's a game changer," Elon had said. "He'll help take Lyra to the next level." But Jamie wasn't so sure. She had built Lyra with a specific vision in mind, one rooted in empathy and human connection. She wasn't convinced that someone with Simon's cold, analytical mindset would understand the deeper nuances of what she was trying to create. Simon extended his hand, offering a polite smile. "It's a pleasure, Jamie. I've heard a lot about you and your work with Lyra. I'm excited to see what we can accomplish together." Jamie shook his hand, her mind still swirling with uncertainty. "The pleasure's mine," she replied, trying to keep her tone neutral. "I'm looking forward to seeing how we can collaborate." As they sat down at the table, Jamie could already tell that Simon wasn't like the others in the room. Where Elon had always been unpredictable, Simon was controlled, almost too controlled. He was all business, asking rapid-fire questions and making observations that felt detached from the human aspect of the project. "Tell me about the emotional algorithms," Simon began, his voice sharp and precise. "I see that you've built Lyra to process emotional data, but how scalable is that? And how does it adapt over time?" Jamie took a deep breath, adjusting her focus. She had spent years developing the emotional intelligence aspect of Lyra, working with psychologists, behavioral scientists, and even empathy specialists to craft a system that could understand and respond to human emotions in a meaningful way. "It's scalable, but with constraints," Jamie explained. "The more data Lyra receives, the more nuanced it becomes in its responses. But the goal isn't just to process emotions, it's to engage with them. Lyra adapts based on individual interactions. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach." Simon leaned forward, his fingers steepled in front of him. "That's all well and good, but what about efficiency? If we're going to integrate Lyra with Tesla and SpaceX, we need to streamline the emotional response system. Right now, it's too unpredictable." Jamie's jaw tightened, but she forced herself to stay calm. Lyra's unpredictability is part of its charm. It's what makes it feel real. Simon raised an eyebrow. "Real or efficient? I think there's a difference." The tension in the room grew palpable, and Jamie's mind raced. She had spent so much time crafting the emotional intelligence that made Lyra unique, but Simon was right about one thing: things needed to be more efficient if they were going to make a serious impact. But she couldn't sacrifice Lyra's soul for the sake of speed and functionality. Elon, who had been silently observing the exchange, finally spoke up. "Simon's point is valid, Jamie. We need to think about scalability. But don't worry, we'll find a way to preserve Lyra's essence while also making it more adaptable." Jamie nodded, feeling a knot form in her stomach. She had spent years perfecting Lyra's heart, but now it seemed like that heart was being questioned. Simon's way of thinking was different, and it was clear he didn't share the same reverence for Lyra's emotional complexity as she did. She had to figure out how to work with him, without losing herself in the process. Over the next few weeks, the meetings with Simon became more frequent. He was always there, pushing for results, asking for more data, more tests, more efficiency. Every conversation seemed to circle back to numbers, algorithms, and metrics, with little regard for the emotional or philosophical aspects of Lyra. At first, Jamie tried to accommodate his approach. She didn't want to appear resistant to change, especially not in front of Elon. But the more she worked with Simon, the more disillusioned she became. His ideas made sense on paper: faster, more efficient, more scalable, but they felt hollow to her. The core of what made Lyra special was at risk. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling meeting, Jamie found herself alone in her office, staring at the screen. She pulled up the prototype of Lyra's new interface, the one Simon had been pushing for. It was sleek, streamlined, and perfectly functional. But something about it felt wrong. It lacked the warmth, the subtlety that had been her original vision for the AI. It felt sterile. Her phone buzzed, and she saw that it was a message from Nadia. Nadia. How's it going with Simon? You seem a little off lately. Jamie paused before responding. She didn't want to seem like she was overreacting, but she couldn't deny the growing frustration that had taken root inside her. Jamie. It's complicated. He's a genius, no doubt. But he's all about efficiency and scale. I'm starting to feel like I'm losing control of the vision. Lyra was never just about functionality. It's about connection. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. There was a brief silence before Nadia's response. Nadia. You've built something amazing, Jamie. Don't let anyone take that from you. But maybe Simon's challenge is a good thing. You don't have to agree with everything he says, but he's pushing you to think in new ways. Sometimes, that's how the best ideas emerge. Jamie stared at the screen, Nadia's words sinking in. Maybe Nadia was right. She didn't have to give up Lyra's heart. But she did need to figure out how to adapt without compromising on what mattered most. Later that week, Jamie called a private meeting with Simon. She was done sitting in the background, letting him call all the shots. It was time for a serious conversation. I need to talk to you about something, Jamie began, her voice steady but firm. Simon raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Go ahead. I understand that efficiency and scalability are critical, Jamie said, choosing her words carefully. But I need you to understand something about Lyra. It's not just another product. It's more than that. The emotional intelligence, the ability to connect, that's the foundation of everything. If we strip that away, we lose what makes it special. Simon studied her for a moment, then leaned back in his chair. I'm not trying to take away from Lyra's emotional side, Jamie. But we can't afford to make compromises on efficiency. If we want to make a real impact, Lyra needs to be able to scale without losing its core capabilities. It's a delicate balance, but it's possible. Jamie felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to make this work. I'm willing to work with you, she said. But we need to keep Lyra's soul intact. If we can do that, then we can move forward. But not at the expense of what made Lyra unique. Simon nodded slowly. Agreed. Let's see how we can integrate both. The clock was ticking. Jamie sat at her desk, her eyes locked on the array of data flooding her screen. The numbers kept running, the simulations never seemed to stop. Lyra was growing, expanding, becoming something that was far beyond what she had ever envisioned when she first started working on it. Yet, with every new advancement, the weight of responsibility grew heavier. SpaceX had already begun testing the integration of Lyra into its neural networks for communication with astronauts, and Tesla's team was in the final stages of incorporating Lyra into their self-driving vehicles. Every day, there were new meetings, new milestones, new pressures. But Jamie had never anticipated just how much this would consume her, how much it would pull her away from everything she believed in. She glanced at the clock again. It was almost midnight. Elon had just sent another message, reminding her of the upcoming presentation. The world is watching, Jamie. Don't let them down. We've made promises. That's what Elon was good at, making grand promises, setting grand expectations. But as the days went by, Jamie started to wonder whether those promises were achievable. She had spent so long building Lyra to be something different, something real. But now, with the stakes this high, could she keep that essence alive while satisfying the corporate machine that was moving at breakneck speed? Her phone buzzed. It was Nadia again. Nadia. Are you still at the office? You haven't replied in hours. Jamie smiled at the message but felt a pang of guilt. She hadn't been the best friend lately. Between the endless calls, meetings, and constant pressure, it had been hard to stay connected with anyone, especially Nadia, who had been her rock since the beginning. Jamie. Yeah. Just trying to get everything in order for the presentation tomorrow. Nadia. You're pushing yourself too hard. You need a break. Jamie. If I don't keep pushing, everything will fall apart. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. There was a long pause before Nadia replied. Nadia. You don't have to do it alone, Jamie. You've got people who believe in you. Don't let the pressure crush you. Jamie stared at the screen for a long moment, feeling the weight of Nadia's words sink in. The truth was, she had never been one to ask for help. Lyra had always been her baby, her vision, something she had built from the ground up. And now, she was being swept into a whirlwind that was so much bigger than her. The pressure to perform was suffocating. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Simon. Simon. We need to talk about the Tesla integration. I'm not happy with the progress. We're falling behind schedule. Jamie took a deep breath, pushing away the sting of frustration. Simon had been a constant presence in her life for weeks now, pushing her to meet deadlines, to streamline everything. He was a taskmaster, no doubt, but also a genius. Still, she couldn't help but feel that his focus on speed and efficiency was compromising the very heart of what they were doing. Jamie. I'm aware of the timeline. I'll make sure we hit our marks. She didn't want to fight him, not right now. She couldn't afford to have another confrontation. But part of her wanted to scream. What about the human side of this? What about the very thing that had made Lyra different from the countless other AIs out there? She couldn't let that get lost in the rush to meet deadlines. The next day, she stood in front of the entire team, ready to present the final integration of Lyra into Tesla's self-driving cars. Elon sat at the back of the room, arms crossed, watching her closely. Simon was beside him, tapping on his tablet with his usual detached expression. Everyone was waiting for her to deliver. She could feel the pressure weighing on her shoulders as she stepped up to the podium. The presentation was everything it was supposed to be, slick, polished, and efficient. Lyra's integration with Tesla's vehicles was seamless. The system was fast, responsive, and adaptive, with a smooth interface that allowed the car to interact with passengers in a way that felt almost human. As the demo concluded, the room erupted into applause. Elon smiled, clearly pleased with the progress. Simon gave her a nod of approval, though his expression remained as unreadable as ever. But as Jamie stood there, she felt a cold emptiness settle in her chest. This wasn't the breakthrough she had imagined. It was just another product, another AI, another cog in the machine. It was everything they had asked for, and yet, nothing like what she had envisioned. She forced a smile and nodded at the team. Thanks, everyone. This is just the beginning. But in her mind, doubts were swirling. Was this really the direction she wanted to go in? Was this the legacy she wanted to leave behind? As the meeting wrapped up, Jamie excused herself and walked to the rooftop of the building. She needed air, space to think. The city sprawled out before her, the lights twinkling in the distance, a constant reminder of how small and insignificant she felt in that moment. Her phone buzzed again. Elon. Great job, Jamie. But the next step is even bigger. We need to talk about global expansion. I want to move fast. No more delays. She read the message twice, her stomach sinking. He was relentless, always looking ahead, always demanding more. Jamie knew this was the cost of working with someone like Elon. But at what point did it become too much? At what point did her vision get lost in the chaos of it all? Are you okay? A voice asked behind her. Jamie turned to see Simon standing there, looking at her with his usual calculating expression. I'm fine, she lied, forcing a smile. Just thinking. Thinking about how you're going to keep up, he asked, his tone surprisingly sympathetic. Jamie stared at him, her frustration bubbling to the surface. I don't know if I can keep up anymore, Simon. This is moving faster than I ever expected. And I feel like I'm losing what made it all worth it. Simon studied her for a long moment before speaking again. I understand. But you don't have to lose everything. You just need to find a way to adapt. Efficiency doesn't have to mean soul-crushing. Jamie didn't know if she believed him, but for the first time in a while, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe there was a way forward, maybe they could strike the right balance. But that would take a level of trust, a level of risk, she wasn't sure she was ready for. The weight of it all was suffocating. Jamie sat alone in her office, the lights dimmed as she stared at the glowing screen in front of her. It was another late night, another round of data analysis, another presentation she had to prep for. The deadlines kept stacking up, each more urgent than the last. The demands from Elon, Simon, and the entire team at Tesla and SpaceX were relentless. They wanted results, and they wanted them now. She rubbed her eyes, trying to clear the fog in her mind, but it felt like no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't escape the overwhelming pressure. Her phone buzzed again, another message from Elon. Elon. Good work on the Tesla integration. Let's talk about SpaceX next week. We're moving forward. No time to slow down. Jamie gritted her teeth, feeling her chest tighten. She didn't know how much longer she could keep up this pace. The relentless push for progress, the constant sacrifices, the compromises on her vision, it was all starting to feel like too much. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. She looked up, startled, and saw Simon standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Can I come in? He asked, his voice neutral. Jamie nodded, feeling a knot form in her stomach. She had a sinking feeling about this conversation. Simon walked in and closed the door behind him, taking a seat across from her. There was something about his calm demeanor that always made her feel like he was in control of the situation, like he always had the upper hand. Everything okay? He asked, his gaze studying her with a certain intensity. Jamie let out a deep sigh, trying to hold back the frustration that was bubbling inside her. I don't know, Simon. I'm exhausted. I don't know how much longer I can keep going like this. Simon's eyes softened, but only for a moment. I get it. The pressure is immense, and it's only going to keep building. But you knew what you were signing up for when you started working with Elon, didn't you? Jamie stared at him, trying to find the right words. I knew it would be tough. But I didn't think it would be like this. The vision, the heart of Lyra, it's getting lost in the noise. I'm compromising more and more every day. And I don't even know if I can keep up with all the changes anymore. Simon leaned forward, his voice lowering slightly. You can keep up, Jamie. You're smarter than anyone I know. But you have to make a choice. You can't keep fighting the tide. If you keep pushing against the flow, you're going to burn out. You need to figure out what's more important to you, sticking to your vision or making a lasting impact on the world. The word stung, but Jamie didn't flinch. She had heard them before, heard them from Elon, from Simon, from everyone around her. The same thing, over and over again, make a choice. Adapt. Evolve. The world was changing, and she had to change with it. But what if the changes she was being asked to make were changing the very core of what Lyra was meant to be? I don't want to lose what I built, Simon, Jamie said, her voice trembling slightly. I don't want Lyra to become just another product, another piece of technology. I don't want it to be soulless, just efficient and cold. Simon studied her for a moment, his gaze unwavering. And you think that's what's happening? You think Lyra is losing its soul? Jamie nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle in. Yes. Every day, it feels less like something I created and more like something being controlled by other people's agendas. The vision I had for Lyra, this AI that could connect with people, understand them, make them feel heard, it's slipping away. It's not about people anymore. It's about data, and profit, and scaling. Simon leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in thought. I understand how you feel. But you need to look at the bigger picture. Lyra could be something bigger than what you ever imagined. This isn't just about a small-scale project anymore. It's about changing the world, changing how people interact with technology on a global scale. Jamie felt a lump in her throat. But at what cost? Is it worth it? Losing the essence of what Lyra was meant to be. There was a long silence between them. Simon's gaze softened, and for the first time, Jamie saw a hint of something more than just a strategist, a human being who understood the emotional weight of what she was saying. Maybe it is worth it. But only you can decide that, he said, his voice quiet but firm. You're the one who built Lyra. You're the one who set this in motion. But if you want it to go beyond what it is now, if you want it to truly change the world, you need to let go of some of the control. Jamie shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can let it become something else, something I didn't intend. Simon stood up, walking over to her side of the desk. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch surprisingly gentle. You're not alone in this, Jamie. You don't have to carry this burden by yourself. You've got a team behind you. You've got me. And most importantly, you've got the vision. You just have to trust yourself, and trust that you can make it work, even if it looks different than you imagined. Jamie looked up at him, searching his face for any sign of insincerity. But there was none. For the first time, she saw him as more than just the cold, calculating strategist. He was a person who, despite his pragmatic approach, understood the weight of what she was carrying. I don't want to lose what makes it real, she whispered, her voice shaky. You won't, Simon replied softly. But you need to make peace with the fact that change is inevitable. How you adapt to that change, that's what will define whether Lyra succeeds or fails. Jamie sat in silence, the weight of his words settling in her chest. She had always prided herself on being in control, on creating something from the ground up that was uniquely hers. But now, that control was slipping away, and the choices she made in the coming days would determine the fate of Lyra, and possibly her own future. She didn't know if she was ready for what lay ahead. But for the first time in a long time, she knew that something had to change. And soon. The glow of the computer screen felt cold and distant, as if it belonged to someone else. Jamie sat in her office, surrounded by papers, reports, and projections of growth that seemed to blur together. The pressure to keep up with Elon and Simon's demands had never been more suffocating. SpaceX, Tesla, and all the global partners they were working with were moving at full speed, and Jamie felt like she was running just to keep pace, never quite catching up. She glanced at the clock. It was well past midnight again. She hadn't seen Nadia in over a week, hadn't taken a day off in nearly a month. Her friends and family had slowly drifted away as she became more consumed by the whirlwind that was Lyra. What had once been a passion project, something that brought her joy and fulfillment, had now turned into an endless cycle of deadlines and stress. The cost of success was beginning to weigh on her in ways she hadn't expected. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Elon. Elon. The presentation next week. It's crucial we hit the target. No delays. You're leading this. Don't let me down. Her stomach tightened. The words felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. Don't let me down. She had heard those words 1,000 times before. Every message from Elon, every demand from Simon, carried that same weight, the expectation of perfection, the pressure to deliver no matter the cost. She stared at the message for a moment, her thoughts swirling. What was the price of this success? Was it worth the sacrifice? The sound of a knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. She looked up, startled, and saw Nadia standing in the doorway, her arms crossed, a concerned expression on her face. Nadia, Jamie said softly, surprised to see her. What are you doing here? I should be asking you that, Nadia replied, stepping into the room. You've been MIA. No calls. No texts. You haven't even come to see me. What's going on, Jamie? Jamie ran a hand through her hair, feeling a knot form in her throat. I've just been busy. You know how it is. Nadia's gaze softened, but there was a hint of frustration in her eyes. I get it. You're busy. But this isn't you. You're drowning in this project, Jamie. You've become a machine. I barely recognize you anymore. Jamie's heart clenched. She had been avoiding Nadia, avoiding everyone. She had told herself it was just temporary, just a few more weeks of pushing, and then everything would settle down. But deep down, she knew it wasn't true. The truth was, she didn't know when it would end. And the longer she let it consume her, the more she lost herself in the process. I'm not drowning, Jamie said, her voice quiet but firm. I'm doing what needs to be done. But at what cost? Nadia countered, her voice softening. You're losing everything around you. Your friends. Your health. And the thing that made Lyra special, it's slipping away. You can't keep going like this. Jamie stood up abruptly, pacing the room. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell Nadia that everything would be fine once the project was finished. But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. Every day, it felt more like the project was taking over her life, not enhancing it. I don't have a choice, Jamie said, her voice tight. Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I wanted to be this person, someone who can't even keep a conversation going with her best friend? But this isn't just about me. This is about changing the world. This is about Lyra. Nadia's expression softened, but there was no mistaking the concern in her eyes. Jamie, you're already changing the world. But not at the cost of yourself. And not at the cost of the people who care about you. What happens when the project is done? What happens when you've built this thing that changes everything, but you're too burned out to enjoy it? Jamie stopped pacing, the question hitting her harder than she expected. What would happen? She didn't know. She had never really considered what life would look like after Lyra's success. She had been so focused on building something revolutionary that she hadn't thought about what it would take to get there, or what it would cost her in the end. You're right, Jamie whispered, her voice cracking slightly. I don't know what happens when this is over. All I know is that I have to keep going. I can't let Elon and Simon down. I can't let everyone down. Nadia stepped forward, placing a hand on Jamie's arm. What about you, Jamie? What happens to you when it's all over? Jamie looked up at her, the weight of the question settling in her chest. What happened to her when it was all over? She hadn't even considered that. In her single-minded focus on Lyra, she had pushed everything else aside. The friendships, the relationships, the quiet moments of peace, everything had been sacrificed for the sake of success. And now, success didn't feel like the reward it once had. I don't know anymore, Jamie admitted softly. I'm not sure I know who I am outside of this project. Nadia gave her a sympathetic smile. You don't have to have all the answers right now, Jamie. But you do need to take a step back. You're not invincible. You're human. And if you keep going like this, you'll break. No project is worth losing yourself. Jamie nodded slowly, the words sinking in. She had known for a while that she was teetering on the edge, but hearing it from Nadia made it real. The truth was, she was already starting to break. The long hours, the constant demands, the growing sense of isolation, it was too much. Maybe I've been too focused on the wrong things, Jamie murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe I've forgotten why I started this in the first place. You started it to make a difference, Nadia said, her voice firm. And you are. But you can't do that if you're not taking care of yourself. Success means nothing if you lose yourself in the process. Jamie took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her own realization. She had to make a choice, whether to continue down this path of relentless ambition or to find a way to reclaim the heart of the project while protecting her own well-being. But more than that, she had to decide whether the price of success was worth everything she had already sacrificed. The next morning, Jamie stood in front of the large windows of her office, looking out over the sprawling city below. The weight of her decision hung heavy in the air, the silence around her pressing in like a physical force. She had barely slept the night before, her mind racing with the conversation she'd had with Nadia, the harsh truths she'd come to terms with, and the deep, gnawing realization that she couldn't continue on the path she'd been on. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to think beyond the immediate demands of Lyra and Elon's ever-growing expectations. What was it all for? What was the point of success if it came at the cost of everything she cared about, her relationships, her health, her happiness? She had been so consumed by the idea of changing the world, by the need to prove herself, that she'd lost sight of the very thing that had made Lyra special in the first place, its heart, its potential to connect people, to make their lives better in ways that truly mattered. But now, she faced an impossible choice. She couldn't just walk away. Lyra wasn't just a project anymore, it was her life's work. And yet, she couldn't continue at this pace without losing everything else. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts, and she turned to find Simon standing there, his usual calm expression barely hiding the concern in his eyes. "Jamie, can we talk?" he asked, stepping into the room without waiting for a response. Jamie nodded, gesturing for him to sit. She wasn't sure where to start, but she knew that this conversation was inevitable. The tension between them had been building for weeks now, and it was time to confront the truth. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "About everything. About Lyra, about where I'm headed, and what it's all costing me. I've been pushing myself so hard, thinking that if I just keep going, I'll eventually reach the end goal. But I don't think I can keep doing this anymore. Not at the cost of everything I care about." Simon sat silently, his eyes narrowing slightly as he absorbed her words. He had always been the pragmatic one, the one who could see the big picture, the one who pushed Jamie to make hard decisions. But even now, in the face of her vulnerability, he didn't rush to offer a solution. "You've been working non-stop," he said after a pause, his voice measured. "I know it's been a lot. But this is the price of success, Jamie. You've always known it wouldn't come without sacrifices." Jamie shook her head. "But is it really worth it? I've given up everything, my time with friends, my connection to Lyra, and even myself, just to meet these impossible expectations. And for what? So I can be known as the person who helped build the next big thing? Is that all there is?" Simon leaned forward, his gaze softening. "You're not just doing this for the recognition, and you know that. You're doing this because you believe in the potential of Lyra to change the world. But change comes with a price, Jamie. We all know that." "I know," she whispered. "But what happens when the price is too high? When you've lost everything around you in the process?" Simon paused, his expression turning thoughtful. "You're asking the right questions now. But the truth is, there's no easy answer. You can't just walk away from this, it's too big. But you can choose how to move forward. You can redefine what success looks like for you." Jamie felt a flicker of hope stir inside her, a glimmer of the vision she'd once had for Lyra. "You're right," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I don't have to keep going at this breakneck pace. I don't have to lose myself in the process. I can find a way to balance my vision with my well-being. I can still change the world, but I don't have to sacrifice everything for it." Simon gave her a small, approving nod. "That's the Jamie I know. It's not about giving up. It's about finding a new path forward, one that works for you. The project will still succeed, but it has to be on your terms. And if anyone can make that happen, it's you." A sense of clarity began to settle over Jamie as she processed his words. She had always been so focused on the idea of success, of proving herself, of pushing through every obstacle, that she had forgotten to ask herself the most important question: what kind of success did she want? The path she had been following wasn't sustainable, and she knew it. But that didn't mean she had to give up on Lyra or her dream. It meant she had to redefine her approach, take control of her life again, and ensure that the heart of Lyra, the very thing that had made it special in the first place, remained intact. "I don't want to lose the essence of Lyra," Jamie said, her voice firm now. "It's always been about people. It's always been about making connections, helping people understand each other better. I can still do that, but I need to do it in a way that doesn't destroy me in the process." Simon smiled, standing up from his chair. "I think that's the best decision you can make. And remember, you're not alone in this. You've got a team who believes in you, who believes in Lyra. We'll all be here to support you, no matter what direction you choose." Jamie stood up as well, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of relief. The road ahead wasn't clear, but at least she had a new sense of direction, a path that allowed her to protect her values while still pushing forward. "I'll make it work," she said quietly, her resolve strengthening. "I'm not going to let this project become something I resent. I'm going to build it the right way, with balance. And that starts now." As Simon left the room, Jamie stood by the window once more, looking out over the city. The future of Lyra was uncertain, but for the first time in months, she felt confident that she could move forward without losing herself in the process. She didn't have all the answers yet, but she was finally ready to take the first step on a new path, a path that embraced both her ambition and her humanity. The morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Jamie's office, bathing the room in a soft golden light. For the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't staring at the clock, calculating how many hours she had left to finish a project or prepare for the next presentation. Instead, she stood there, a warm cup of coffee in hand, simply watching the world go by. It had taken months of struggle, of self-reflection, and of difficult decisions, but she had finally arrived at a place where she felt at peace. The chaos of the last year, the non-stop pressure, the late nights, the sacrifices, was behind her now. And ahead of her, a future she was eager to shape, one that didn't just revolve around the success of Lyra, but around who she was as a person. Jamie took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment. She had learned so much over the past few months. She had learned that success wasn't defined by endless hustle or by living up to other people's expectations. It wasn't about proving something to anyone. It was about creating something meaningful, something that made a difference, while also nurturing the relationships and the well-being that mattered most. The journey had been grueling, but it had brought her closer to understanding her own limits and desires. And perhaps most importantly, it had given her the clarity to lead Lyra in a way that aligned with her values. A way that allowed her to be ambitious without sacrificing her health or the relationships she held dear. Today was different. Today was the day she would take the next step, not just as the CEO of Lyra, but as a woman who had learned to balance ambition with self-respect. Jamie placed her coffee cup on the desk and sat down, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She was about to send the email that would change everything. The one she had been planning for weeks. The one that would announce her decision to take a step back from the relentless grind and implement a new direction for Lyra, one that was sustainable for both the company and its people. It was time for a change. And not just for her, but for everyone who worked with her. As her fingers typed, Jamie reflected on how far she had come. When she first started Lyra, she had been driven by a single-minded determination to prove herself. She had thrown herself into the work, building the company from the ground up, believing that if she just worked hard enough, everything else would fall into place. But the truth was, nothing fell into place when she neglected her own well-being and the people who mattered most. She had nearly lost Nadia, had strained her relationships with her team, and had pushed herself to the brink of burnout. But through it all, she had learned that success didn't have to mean giving up everything. The key to lasting success, she now knew, was finding harmony between her work and her personal life. Jamie hit send on the email, her heart racing. It was done. Now, she would follow through with the changes. She had already set up a meeting with the team to discuss the new direction, and she was excited to finally share her vision for the future. A vision that wasn't about working harder, but working smarter. A vision that put people at the center, that prioritized mental health and well-being, and that recognized that success didn't have to come at the expense of happiness. Her phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was a message from Simon. Simon. Great call this morning, Jamie. I'm on board with the new direction. Let's make it happen. Jamie smiled at the message. The support from her team meant more than she could express. She had always known they believed in Lyra's mission, but now she could see that they believed in her, too. They believed in the vision she had for the company and for themselves. This wasn't just her journey anymore, it was theirs as well. Together, they would redefine what success looked like. Just then, the door opened, and Nadia stepped into the room, a concerned look on her face. But when she saw Jamie, standing there with a confident smile, the concern melted away. You look different, Nadia remarked, crossing the room and sitting down beside Jamie. What's going on? Jamie turned to her, her smile widening. I made a decision. A big one. I'm changing how we work at Lyra. We're going to prioritize balance, sustainability, and people. And I'm going to lead by example. Nadia's eyes softened, a mix of relief and admiration crossing her face. You're really doing it, aren't you? You're going to take charge of your life, not just the company. Jamie nodded. Yeah. I've been so focused on proving myself that I forgot what really mattered. But I can still make a difference without sacrificing everything else. I can still change the world, just in a different way. Nadia smiled, the tension between them finally lifting. I'm proud of you, Jamie. I knew you could figure it out. Jamie took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. It's going to be a journey. I'll make mistakes along the way. But I know now that I don't have to do it alone, and I don't have to do it at the expense of my happiness. The door to her office opened again, and Simon walked in, a grin on his face. I think we're all on the same page now. The new direction for Lyra, let's make it happen. No more burnout. No more sacrificing everything for success. We're building something that will last, not just for us, but for the people we're trying to help. Jamie's heart swelled with pride. This wasn't just a victory for her, it was a victory for her entire team. They were all in this together, and they were ready to change the way they worked, and the way they lived. As the team gathered around, Jamie felt a sense of peace settle over her. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't just rushing toward the next milestone. She wasn't chasing some abstract idea of success. She was creating a future that aligned with her values and her vision, one step at a time. The future, she realized, wasn't something to be feared. It was something to be shaped with intention, with care, and with the knowledge that true success wasn't about how much you accomplished, it was about how you lived along the way. And with that, Jamie knew that whatever the future held, she was ready for it. The morning after Jamie's announcement, she walked into the office with a renewed sense of purpose. The buzz in the building was palpable, everyone had heard the news. The company was ready to embrace the change, and so was she. But the true test had just begun. As much as she was committed to her new path, she knew that transforming a company culture was no easy feat. It wasn't just about implementing policies or sending out emails, it was about living the change day by day, leading by example, and earning the trust of her team all over again. As Jamie made her way to her office, she passed by familiar faces, colleagues who had worked with her since the very beginning of Lyra's journey. Most of them greeted her with smiles, but there was a palpable tension in the air. It wasn't just curiosity about the new direction, it was uncertainty. Change, even a positive one, could be unnerving, especially when it meant rethinking everything. Inside her office, Jamie sat down at her desk, her mind racing. She had been thinking about this moment for so long, visualizing it over and over, but now that it was here, she had to face the reality of what it meant to reinvent herself, and the company, amid so much expectation. Would people truly believe in her new vision? Would they trust her decision to step back from the high-octane, go-go-go pace that had defined Lyra for so long. Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was an email from Simon. "Jamie, I've scheduled a meeting with the leadership team this afternoon. We need to lay out the specifics of your new direction and get everyone on the same page. Let me know if you want to be involved in the discussion." Jamie sighed, knowing that Simon was right. The team needed a clear roadmap, and she was the one to create it. But part of her still felt vulnerable. What if this new approach wasn't as easily accepted as she hoped? What if the pressure to keep up with industry standards and Elon's expectations overwhelmed everything she had worked to create? Before she could dive deeper into her thoughts, Nadia walked in, her expression warm yet serious. "So," Nadia said as she sat down across from Jamie. "How are you feeling?" Jamie smiled, grateful for the constant support. "I'm okay. It feels like the first step, but there's a lot more to do. It's not just about setting new goals, it's about changing the entire mindset. I have to make sure the whole company is on board." Nadia nodded. "I get it. Change takes time, but I think everyone is ready for it. Lyra's been a bit of a runaway train for a while. People are looking for stability, not just in terms of success, but in how they approach their work and their lives. You're giving them that." "I hope so," Jamie said, a small frown creasing her brow. "But what if it's not enough? What if it's too much of a shift for some people?" Nadia gave her a reassuring smile. "Jamie, you've always been the one to push the boundaries. And you know as well as I do, people follow leaders who are willing to make bold moves. You've got this." Jamie appreciated Nadia's optimism, but doubts still lingered. Was she really ready for this? Could she change Lyra's culture without falling back into the same unhealthy patterns? The day moved quickly. By the time the leadership team meeting came around, Jamie was both excited and anxious. She had never been one to shy away from a challenge, but this was different. It wasn't just about selling an idea or implementing a new feature, it was about reshaping the very fabric of Lyra. If she failed, she knew it wouldn't just be the company that suffered, it would be the people she cared about most, too. As the team gathered around the table, Jamie stood at the front, taking a deep breath. She had come a long way from the driven, perfectionistic CEO who had once only seen success in terms of revenue and press coverage. Today, she was going to share her vision, not just for the company, but for the people who made it possible. "Thank you all for being here," Jamie began, her voice steady. "I know that the changes we're discussing today might seem radical to some, but this is the path I believe will make Lyra not only more successful, but more meaningful. I want us to be a company that prioritizes people, our employees, our users, and even ourselves." She paused, scanning the room. Some faces were lit with curiosity, others with skepticism. But that was okay. She had made her decision, and now she needed to explain why this shift was not just necessary but vital. "We've been running at full speed for years," she continued. "And I'm proud of what we've accomplished, but we can't keep going like this. We can't keep burning out our best people, sacrificing our health, and losing sight of what really matters. We need to change the way we work." The room was quiet. Jamie's words were sinking in, but she knew the next step was crucial. She had to show them how this shift could work in practice. It wasn't enough to talk about balance and wellness, she needed to make it tangible. "I'm proposing a shift in how we structure our teams and our projects," Jamie said, pulling up a presentation on the screen. "We'll be implementing mandatory rest periods, more flexible work hours, and a focus on mental health resources. I also want to revisit the way we set goals. Let's focus on quality, sustainability, and long-term success rather than just quarterly targets." Jamie could see some of the leaders exchanging glances. Some were nodding in agreement, others were looking a bit uncertain. "I know this isn't a small change," she said, her voice softening. "But I believe it's the kind of change that will keep us competitive in the long run. We'll be the company that takes care of its people, and that will show in our products and our success. I'm asking you to trust me, and trust each other." There was a moment of silence. Then, one of the senior engineers, Rachel, spoke up. "I think it's about time," Rachel said. "I've been with Lyra for 5 years, and I've seen people burn out, including myself. The idea of working in a way that actually respects our time and energy, it's something we've all needed." Jamie smiled, feeling a sense of relief. Slowly, one by one, others began to speak up. They voiced their concerns, yes, but they also recognized the need for change. By the end of the meeting, Jamie had a renewed sense of confidence. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. There would be bumps and setbacks. But as long as she kept her team's needs at the forefront, she knew they could find their way through. As the team left the meeting, Simon walked over to Jamie, a look of approval on his face. "You did it. They're with you, Jamie. Now it's time to make it real." Jamie nodded, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. This wasn't just her vision anymore, it was their vision, too. And that made all the difference. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?